Tonight, bewilderingly crawling out of a closet after 8 months, it's Alex.
What is going on? Who the hell are you? Look, dude, I don't know where you're hiding, but I'm gonna call the cops, alright? You
And
can't
he's
be
here to make
Oh my god.
video.
There's more of you. There's a chorus. I hear multiple people. What's happening?
This is a cozy setup. I'm very happy with what I've been able to do here. Make Some Noise originated as a one-off game changer concept, airing as the second episode in its first season of 5 episodes. Despite carrying the namesake of the series, this first episode is vastly different from the show we see now. The first third of the episode involved the players receiving prompts of animals. They were required to respond with their best shot at that animal's sound. This first section is solely designed for the players to understand the game, as the game was not made clear to them before the cameras started rolling, as is the conceit of Game Changer. There are some really fun moments here, but it makes sense that this concept was never brought back for future Make Some Noise episodes, as every episode afterwards, the players already understood the game, making no need for an introduction phase to the game. The second third of the episode is most similar to modern Make Some Noise. Instead of animals, players get prompts that are less well defined, leaving room for interpretation, and interpret they may.
A North Dakotan.
Yeah, man, I love it here in North Dakota.
Now, these prompts are not nearly as complex as modern Make Some Noise prompts, but we'll come back to that later. The third third of the episode is admittedly my least favorite, and I'm not surprised that it hasn't been brought back. Foregoing text-based prompts altogether, Josh, Zach, and Brennan are given pictures to ascribe sound to. I think initially it's pretty clear the players were a bit unsure of what to do here, but once they got the hang of it, I think there were a few really fun interpretations. Then towards the end, I think the pictures got a little too complex and abstract, and it made it more and more difficult for the players to ascribe any emotion or jokes to. I could see a version of this come back at some point with less complex pictures, so players have more wiggle room to actually ascribe like relationships or characteristics or emotions to these characters to make jokes and scenes out of, but overall I'm not surprised that this concept hasn't been brought back. We'll talk about a lot of the changes to Make Some Noise content, but one thing I want to point out here that I think is particularly interesting is that the format of the show has never changed. It's always been first round minigame, second round minigame, third round. In the end, Brennan won, and that was that. Until Game Changer Season 2. The original Make Some Noise was beloved and cherished, as it should be, so much so that it became Game Changer's first ever game samer in its second season. Because in a show where the game changes every show, keeping the game the same is the most changed the game could be. On the surface, there are not too many changes to the structure of this episode, but I think in this episode something clearly clicked with the creative team. I think if I were to talk to Sam about any Make Some Noise episode, only one, it would probably be this one. This episode is where the modern Make Some Noise format takes full foot. What? This episode is where the modern Make Some Noise format is born, and mostly unchanged beyond this point, only honed and refined to perfection. The first section of this episode is essentially the same as the second section of the first episode. The players receive prompts that require some interpretation and give flexibility to the performers on what sounds they want to make. The last 2/3 of this episode are where Make Some Noise changes forever, and it all began with
Josh and Zach. Your sound is a foreign politician and his translator.
Instead of competitively making noises at each other, our players are forced to create noises with each other for points. In my opinion, this began a shift of the creative focus of this show. Originally, this was a game changer concept with improv elements embedded into it. But instead, with this change, it is starting to slowly morph into an engineered and edited improv show with game show elements. The goal of the game is still presented as making noise, but the presentation of the prompts to the players shifts to what is essentially just a suggestion for an improv scene. Look at this first scene with Josh and Zach, for example. Their prompt is a foreign politician and his translator, which A, one performer speaking gibberish and another translating said gibberish is straight up just a format of several scene-based improv games. And B, this gives the players, instead of the basis of an object, a basis of a relationship, which they can build on for what becomes an improv scene. Now they have a strong foundation of what the noises they're trying to make, instead of just interpreting whatever the prompt directly gives them. Now the game becomes more fun for the audience and to some degree simpler for the performers. Since all things considered, this is just an improv scene now. Now that our players are essentially in an improv scene, the rules change. They are now pursuing to find a game, a joke, something that they can latch on to, repeat, and flesh out for laughs throughout the runtime of the scene until Sam cuts them off. Maybe some of the prompts take a line or two to discover what the game or what the joke of this relationship is, but this is an edited product. This is not a live improv show, so that's 100% fine. That being said, the onus is still on the performers to find whatever the joke is between a foreign politician and the translator, for example. They're not given some sort of joke to play out with those two characters. They have to find that joke themselves, for now. Now, this development on its own creates an entirely better show, in my opinion. But there's one more change to the show that I think is equally, if not more, pivotal to the development of the show and to the show it is today. And that change comes in Season 3's rendition of Make Some Noise, entitled The Substitute. Over the course of the show's growth, I think it's natural that the prompts would get more complex. As I mentioned earlier, when we were talking about Season 1, writing on animal sounds for multiple episodes would have probably gotten pretty boring pretty fast. However, the prompts didn't just get more complex. The prompts became the jokes themselves. For example, one of the first prompts in Season 3's The Substitute, a jellyfish giving its son the talk. A Season 1 version of this prompt might have just been a jellyfish. A Season 2 version of this prompt might have been a jellyfish and its son. But now we get a jellyfish giving its son the talk. An evolution from an animal to a defined relationship with a joke embedded into it. Forgive me, but this is truly a game changer. Because the onus is no longer on the players to create the jokes. In Season 2, the defined relationship was just that, a relationship. No additional details were provided to the performers, so finding the funny of this relationship was solely up to the performers. Now, this is not a problem by any means. Improv performers often make shows off of a single word or no words at all. These players are used to this kind of performing. That being said, even in professional improv, finding the joke of a scene where you're given a relationship or an item like a wrench or something can be difficult and can still take a little bit of time. There can be some struggle in finding what is the joke or what is the thing that we can make fun of with the people on stage within a certain amount of time. Usually, eventually, a game is found, a joke is had, laughs are made, and all is well. However, Make Some Noise, or Game Changer in this case, is a fully edited, fully produced show. And in a fully edited, fully produced show, the main question almost always is, how can we make this faster and funnier? How can we get to the point without wasting anyone's time and also still make the most entertaining product we possibly can? And thus, from this episode onwards, Make Some Noise brilliantly does the hard work for their improvisers by defining the game for them and just letting them run free with it and showcase their comedic talents. The majority of prompts from this episode onwards into Game Changer Season 4, into Make Some Noise Seasons 1 and 2, all contain the premise of an already existing joke, and all the performers need to do is play that joke out. It's a perfect blend of showcasing improvisational and comedic talent without asking the performers to carry the entire burden of the entertainment value of the show. I could pull a ton of examples from both seasons of Make Some Noise to prove my point here, but I'll go with one of my favorites. Busy cowboys try to schedule a gunfight. The joke is right there in the prompt. It's a funny idea completely on its own that can be justified in a vast number of ways. We typically think of gunfights and cowboys as being headstrong and cocky and confident and wanting to gunfight at dawn, fueled by strong emotion and hypermasculinity. Instead, the prompt suggests that cowboys are busy. They have birthday parties to attend to, business meetings to parlay at, TV shows to watch. They gotta catch up on Yellowstone. They don't have time for gunfights. Are they truly busy, or are they just trying to avoid the gunfight? All these concepts and more could be explored in this single prompt that was given to the performers. All the performers need to do is pick one or more of those options, flesh it out in a scene, and that they do. Now, that's not to say that these performers don't need to be talented or funny, because they absolutely need to be both of those things. This show houses a bunch of incredible improv comedians, but it also is supposed to act as a way to showcase their talent, and these developments have made it easier and easier to showcase their talent while removing the obstacles that are in the way of typical improv. That's also not to say that Make Some Noise doesn't still have prompts that rely mostly, if not entirely, on the performer. In fact, two of my favorite prompts that rely heavily on the performers are in this episode. One of them, Kurt, he does a rendition of a middle school slam poetry champ, and Lauren, who argues both sides of a dolphin argument. But the thing is, these prompts still provide complexity, even if they don't give a joke for the performers to immediately jump onto. Maybe in a past season of Make Some Noise, or a past show of Make Some Noise, we would have seen less complex prompts. Maybe we would have just had slam poetry champ, or poetry champ, or both sides of an argument, or just argument. But instead, by making the prompts more complex, these performers have more to mull over, more to pick out, more to decide from, and thus they have multiple points of entry into making the prompts funny. And the audience's expectations are set in turn. These prompts are declaring to the audience, this prompt is funny, so the performance that comes from this prompt will also be funny, and you should pay attention. We have faith in the performers because the prompts put faith in them just the same, and the show's made all the better for it. This show is probably my favorite show on Dropout, and I've learned a lot from it. I started improv myself 6 months ago, and since then I've been watching all the episodes back on 0.25 times
On 9
speed,
separate
5
screens
different
with
colored
colored
notebooks and
notes,
pens, every
body
symbol,
movement.
and it's made me all the better. It's genuinely really helped me hone my own improv. On a deeper level, I think Make Some Noise reaches out to me as well. I think it's a very beautiful demonstration of the creative process and how a small one-off idea can transform into a bigger, better idea. It's incredible watching this pitch for a 25-minute one-off game-changer episode develop from a fun show involving animal sounds and abstract picture prompt interpretation to a fully-fledged multi-season flagship series that captures the essence of improv comedy incredibly beautifully and efficiently. It shows the power of having a strong idea and committing to creating that idea some way. Anyway, at worst, you've accomplished what many people don't, bringing something out of your head and into the world. At best, you can capture the strength of an idea, develop it, hone it, do more of it, develop it more, hone it more, do it more, until it becomes something truly special and one of a kind. And at the very best, you'll get to work with Wayne Brady. So you have that to look forward to.
Well, you're welcome, Colonial. This is, oh my God, this is amazing.
I know, a spoil of riches.